what I'm going to be doing is changing the lube that's actually in my Star Lube Sizer. I'm sure there's lots of different ways of doing that. I'm just going to show you how I do it. You're going to need 11/16" wrench to loosen the nut that holds the punch, small screwdriver to adjust the heated base, a mallet, and the way I removed the die is I bought a 3/4 inch wooden dowel and I whittled it one end some and sanded it so it'll fit in so I can punch it up from the bottom. But whether you punch it up from the bottom or use the extraction tool that came with the Lube Sizer, you still need to take the punch off. I've also disconnected my air. I do have an air assembly on it. So at this point what I've done, I've turned on the heat, kind of a low setting, to soften the lube up here so I can punch out the sizing die. Now this can get a little bit messy, so we'll end up also using a bucket, and I want to put on some disposable gloves. Okay, let's remove the punch. Now let's remove the die. I also have me a pan with some parchment paper on it. That's where I'm going to lay out the wax as it kind of accumulates, and I'll show you how I do that. Now I get my bucket in place. I want to attach the air. And my heated base is still on, so what I want to do now is I want to crank the heated base up to past higher than the factory setting. And then I want to turn on the air. The intent is the lube will come out of the opening, and either I can accumulate it in the bucket, sometimes it just comes straight out, sometimes it starts accumulating in the opening, the die holder. If it does, I just let it accumulate, and then I push it out and I kind of get like a plug of lube, and I put all that on the parchment paper. All right, now I want to crank up the air pressure. It's already coming out. All right, it's accumulating on the inside, and I'm going to go ahead and let it do that. Let me zoom in some. And I'm going to let it basically just form a plug. Now I'm going to push the plug out. And I'm going to put it on the parchment paper. By letting it accumulate in here, kind of like create a little plug that if I want to go back and reuse this lube, well I can just drop it right down inside. Alright, it's not coming out anywhere near as fast as it used to. It's just coming out in little streams now. For all practical purposes, it's not coming out anymore. I know there's still lube in there, so what we're going to have to do is really do a transition. I'll cut off the power, disconnect the air, pull out the plunger, and I'll show you this. Clean it off, put in the new lube. We're going to add pressure, add heat, and we're going to keep pulling out the lube, because it's going to come out the two kinds at first, and until it transitions over to the new one completely, you want to keep expelling the lube until you get it transitioned over. Alright, I'm going to cut off the heat. turn off the air, and then reposition the camera. What we're going to do next is to remove the air pressure assembly. Make sure your air source is disconnected. Make sure you run the regulator so it's all the way down to 0. And then we unscrew it. More than likely, the plunger inside is going to be held fast by the lube. By undoing this, we're actually going to probably going to end up unscrewing the air assembly from the plunger. But that's really not an issue. We'll figure out. Right, see how it's disconnected? And what I do is just take off the large, put this back in. Screw it into the plunger. There we go. And then pull up. Alright. What I'm going to do off camera is to remove the lube off the plunger, clean the bottom of the plunger. I'll do that off camera because it's basically not that difficult to do. What I'm going to do next is just take a flashlight, look down inside. Here's some lube down there. The sides are fairly clear, but there's some lube at the bottom. And I've got this long metal pick. And see how much of it I can get. And this is just an idea of how much was stuck at the bottom. Alright, I've got it cleaned out fairly well. It's not going to be totally clean. If you actually need it totally clean, that could be probably pretty difficult to do. You might have to actually disassemble the whole thing and just heat up the whole unit so it just flows out. But I don't need it totally clean. But I'll get through the purging process. We'll get the old lube out. So I'm going to go ahead and stick in the new lube. And just like set up before, to install the air pressure unit, I want to apply a little bit of pressure to the unit so that the plunger will stay down. Otherwise, when I insert it, it's just going to just collapse like this. And then there's going to be a big air gap in there. So I want to attach the air, insert it. Alright, it's hit the bottom there. So what I'm going to do is run the regulator down to 0. I won't quite disconnect the air yet because I need to turn it off at the pump. And at this point I want to reposition the camera so we can start what I want to call the purging process. I want to turn the heat on a little bit factory setting or higher. Then I'll put some pressure on. Then I want to start seeing the lube come out. And it's probably going to be a combination of the old and the new. Once what's coming out is predominantly the new lube, I'm going to turn off the heat and cut off the pressure. Alright, it's beginning to come out. I don't know how well you can see it, but it's like a mixture of the new and the old. Here is predominantly old. Here we're seeing new, still with a mix of the old. It's predominantly the new. Alright, at this point, it's essentially all new. So I want to cut off the air pressure. I want to cut off the heat. You can see how it transitioned from the old to the new. There's still a little bit of old in there, but eventually transitioned to the new. All right, what I want to do next is clean out the inside of the die seating area, and then of course I need to remove the old lube off the die. On the die there was a bullet in it, so I just used a brass punch to punch it out. Clean the inside. I used a toothpick to kind of get the old lube out of the openings, and then I did a visual inspection of the other holes to make sure the lead shot is still holding up. As you recall, you need to lubricate these surfaces here before inserting it back. You can use the press to push it down, but don't push it down so far where you actually activate the pump. You really don't want to start pushing lube into this area. Now we're going to put the punch back, and this is where you need that measurement between the top of the die and the bottom of the punch, or if you use an adjustable parallel, this is where you'll need that adjustable parallel. Alright, now we're going to tighten it. So at this point we should be good to go with the new lube. Now obviously there's no lube around the sizing die, so when you first start using it, it's got to fill in that gap area first before it actually starts inserting lube into the grooves. But that's no different than when you first set up the sizing die with no lube in it. So I hope this video has been useful to you, and thank you for watching.